Well, it is so good. It is so good to be back at CPAC. This is one of my favorite times in the year, and it's good to see you smiling. It's great to be smiling. I understand you've had a great week this week. For the first time in history, the Vice President of the United States and the President of the United States spoke at CPAC in one event. We ought to celebrate that. And I understand the President hit it out of the park as he came in yesterday. And speaking of hitting it out of the park, I think many of you know that I love baseball. And there's an old saying by Yogi Berra, the future ain't what it used to be. Now I want you to think back. Think back before November 8th of last year, how you felt as we approached the election. And you thought about something as important as who is going to be sitting on the United States Supreme Court in 2017. The future ain't what it used to be. We've got a great individual nominated by the President of the United States. He's going to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate, and he's going to transform the court. We should be excited about that. Think about how you felt. Think about how you felt with respect to health care and Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act and what was going to happen with respect to that over the years ahead. The future ain't what it used to be. Congress is on the way to repealing the Affordable Care Act. The President is leading on the Affordable Care Act repeal. We should be excited about that and know that we have hope and optimism that change is on the way. Think about what you felt with border security and immigration. How we needed a president who was going to lead to make sure that we took seriously enforcing the borders. How we took seriously making sure that national security was advanced. The future ain't what it used to be, as Yogi Berra said. And I will tell you, as I started this week, last Friday, I was sworn in as the EPA administrator. And as I was sworn in as the EPA administrator, I began this week leading that agency. And I will tell you, the future ain't what it used to be at the EPA. Because maybe for the first time ever, but at least in a long time, that agency, like agencies across the federal government, we're going to do business as you should as an administrative agency, as an executive agency, because you know this. Executive agencies only have the power that Congress has given them. They can't make it up as they go. They can't fill in the blank. They can't say, we're just simply going to go forward without Congress speaking. And so, leading the EPA, sending that message across our agency, I've emphasized three very important things as I've started leading the EPA. Number one, we're going to pay attention to process. Rulemaking matters. We're not going to have sue and settle. We're not going to have consent decrees. We're not going to lead that agency in a way that regulation through litigation. We're not going to bypass rulemaking. We're going to do the work that Congress has said that we must do to advance those issues. So process matters. But as we engage in real rulemaking, as we make sure that we don't use the courts to regulate, we're going to do so with a keen attention to rule of law. Rule of law matters. You know, sometimes when we talk about rule of law, we think that it's some academic or legal concept. It's not. There's a phrase that I love to use, lex rex. The law is above the king. And when rule of law is applied, it provides certainty to those that are regulated. Those in industry should know what's expected of them. Those in industry should know how to allocate their resources to comply with the regulations passed by the EPA. We're going to conduct and pay attention to rule of law because we want to do what? Make sure that we operate within the framework that Congress has provided us, to operate within the framework of the law and not outside of the law, as has happened of late. So process matters. Rule of law matters, but let me tell you this. What really matters a lot is federalism. We're going to once again pay attention to the states across this country. I believe that people in Oklahoma, in Texas, in Indiana, in Ohio, in New York, in California, and all the states across the country, they care about the air they breathe and they care about the water they drink. And we're going to be partners with those individuals, not adversaries. The EPA is going to be a partner to make sure that we advance environmental issues and restore the notion of federalism that's insistent in our environmental statutes. So process, rule of law, and cooperative federalism, that's going to be the heart of how we do business at the EPA. The future ain't what it used to be at the EPA. as we look forward to the next 4 years, I think what we should do at this point is recognize that we should have hope and optimism. That we're going to go out and see a trajectory, a new day of freedom. You know, there are certain times in history when you're living them, you know that the time that you're living is not just going to impact the immediate generation, but generations in the future. And we can look back over the past, and we know those times. Obviously, the time during World War II was a very important time that impacted generations and decades. 1980 was one of those. And we know the Reagan Revolution brought about substantial change for this country and set us on a course toward freedom. I will tell you, 2017 is a time that is going to set the trajectory of history into the future. We're going to restore power back to the people. We're going to recognize that regulatory uncertainty in the regulatory state needs to be reined in. We're going to make sure that the states are recognized with the authority they have, and we're going to do the work that's important to advance freedom and liberty for the future. It's an exciting time. So I hope as we close this time at CPAC, that as we leave here, we have much work to do. I have a lot to say grace over at my agency. There's lots of changes that need to take place to restore a commitment to rule of law and process and federalism, but we've already begun. And as you go out into the rest of the country, know this, that the folks in Washington, D.C. have a new attitude. It's an attitude that no longer is, we're going to dictate to those across the country and tell them how to live each and every day. It's an attitude that says we're going to empower citizens and the states. It's an idea of federalism and believing in liberty. We're not going to have managed liberty anymore. We're going to believe in the Constitution and do the work that is provided here in Washington, D.C. I look forward to coming and seeing you in the States as we make these changes, as we deal with waters of the United States, as we deal with the Clean Power Plan, as we roll back the regulatory state. We're not going to just do that from Washington, D.C. We're going to come to Ohio and Pennsylvania and all across the country and celebrate with you as we make those changes. I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to partnering with you. And I look forward to a prosperous and exciting next 4 years. God bless you.
Very well done.
Dr. Gina.
Very well done. Well, I can tell you all are very excited about him, but I find a certain irony here. Show of hands, those of you who kind of hope that Administrator Pruitt will just sort of make the EPA go away. How does it feel to be here today with pretty much everyone hoping that the very agency you are running is going to go away, literally?
Well, it's justified. I think as we look over the last several years, the agency that I'm tasked to lead at this point has been used by the previous administration to truly impact our country in ways that we never could have imagined 8 years ago. Jobs have been impacted. The authority that the Washington, D.C. has, the assumption of power and the accumulation of power, they've taken advantage of that. And so I think it's justified. I think people across this country look at the EPA much like they look at the IRS. And I hope to be able to change that and change that consistent with the principles we just talked about, Dr. Gina.
Yeah. Well, I have a few little things that you may or may not know about, but this is, you've got your hands full. Let me just say that. The EPA,
I do know that.
The EPA grants $4 billion a year. A couple of examples of that, $84,000 to the University of Michigan to study, you're going to love this, the effectiveness of using churches to promote environmentalist causes. Money to the University of California, Riverside received a grant to study carbon emissions from evil barbecue grills. $1.5 million went to the University of Colorado to study pollution caused by residential cooking in Africa. That's important use of your tax dollars. And last but not least, a Unitarian church received an environmental justice grant. So you're a baseball guy,
I
right?
am. I am.
And so I've had to study up on some of my baseball statistics for this interview just for you.
Okay, that's good to hear.
My son's a big baseball fan, but I'm going to be
That's
honest
also good to
here.
hear, yeah.
Yes. So you got a guy from Oklahoma, Mickey Mantle.
That's right.
Yeah. You're probably a big fan of him, right? Well, when he retired, he was third on the home run list with 583 of those. But Pete Rose, I understand, is your favorite baseball player.
He's
Someone
one
told
of
me
them,
that.
yes.
All-time hit record holder. So here's my question. When it comes to cutting all of the regulation, are you going to be more like Pete Rose with lots of hits and undo it a little bit at a time? Are you just going to go for those home runs like Mickey Mantle? What's it going to be?
It's good to do both, right? It's good to hit a few out of the park, and it's also good to move the ball down the field in football as well. But I think it is both. I think there are some regulations that in the near term need to be rolled back in a very aggressive way. And I think maybe next week you may be hearing about some of those as it relates to some of these key issues. And we know what those are. We know that the previous administration took the Waters of the United States rule and transformed the Clean Water Act and made puddles and dry creek beds across this country subject to the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C. That's going to change. The future ain't what it used to be there. And so I do think, Dr. Gina, there's going to be some big steps taken to address some of those regulations, and then there'll be several singles and doubles as well.
You walked in that first day with a lot of people who wonder if they're going to have jobs. I posted on social media, what did people want me to ask you? The number one thing is, how much can we cut from the EPA budget? People are suggesting we take it down 90% on social media.
You know, it's something that's very difficult to know at this point. I've only been there since Tuesday. So it's something we've got to figure out as far as how we're going to do business in the future. I think in the near term, the most important thing that we can focus upon at the EPA is getting the law right. Making sure that the regulations that are posted and adopted by that agency are consistent with the rule of law and consistent with congressional mandate. And then roll back those that are inconsistent from the previous administration. So I think that's the work in the near term. Mm-hmm. I think long-term, asking the question on how that agency partners with the states and how that affects the budget, how it affects the structure, is something we'll work on very diligently.
The issue of climate change on the other side is that you guys can clap for that answer, yes. I can't for the life of me see where my time is. If someone could just point it to me. I don't want to go over. Somebody wave big at me when I need to shut up. I want to ask you this because the issue of climate change is brought up over and over again. You've been grilled on this mercilessly, but
that's quite a process, by the way. That Senator confirmation process is quite a process.
Well,
I don't recommend it to anyone. I've been trying to forget that process, for the last 2 or 3 weeks. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, one thing you said, I love this quote. You said, if it is possible to minimize the rises of climate change, then is also the same exaggeration should go for, if people are overestimating the problems of climate change. But you also said this: the climate is changing, and human activity contributes to that in some manner. What is that manner?
Well, we don't know, and that's the difficulty with this issue, because to measure with precision that impact is something that is very difficult to do. But let's not forget something. Are the tools in the toolbox. I think the last several years, the focus has been on whether the climate is changing, whether humans are contributing to it, and the scientific review of that. But there's a whole other part of the question, the equation that's not being asked. If it is happening, what can Congress and what can the administrative state do about it? If the tools aren't in the toolbox, if Congress hasn't spoken on the issue, agencies just can't make it up. They can't just say, we're just going to go forward irrespective of whether Congress has spoken. Remember, administrative agencies like EPA, they're in the executive branch. They exist to enforce the law, as passed by whom? Congress, the legislative branch. And so if Congress has not spoken, the executive branch just can't go forward. And so I think the debate here is about process. It's about rule of law. It's about making sure that agencies across the federal government are empowered to do the things that they're seeking to do historically.
Mm-hmm. And so, yes, go ahead and clap. Sorry. They always want to cheer for you. This is great. So top priorities as you're really looking at, like, what you just love to tackle first. President Trump has his 100-day plan.
That's right.
What's yours?
Regulatory certainty. I mean, when you look at tax and fiscal policy in this country, very, very important to our economic growth, no doubt. But if you ask most business owners over the last several years what has been the greatest impediment to their ability to grow their business, whether it's the finance sector, healthcare, energy, it's what? Regulatory uncertainty. It's agencies making it up as they go. It's agencies acting in a way that says, the statute says one thing, but we're going to do exactly the opposite. That cannot continue. We have to send a message across the country. We have to send a message across the country that we're going to provide certainty by living within the framework that Congress has passed. And so we're going to see regulations roll back that aren't consistent with that, Dr. Gina. WOTUS, Clean Power Plan, the methane rule. There are several. We've got plenty to say grace over.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So you described a little bit about what it was like to walk in that first day and have people, whatever. You were controversial. I mean, I said to you, this is a homecoming here at CPAC. He's been here forever, and we all love him here. But that same love is flipped exactly on its head in certain other audiences, right? So tell them a little bit about what you shared with me about your optimism, really, of the people that you have to work with.
Well, one of the things that I really wanted to try to establish day one is share a little bit about who I am as a person and how I lead. And I really believe that as a leader, whether you're leading the EPA or a business, you've got to listen and learn, and then you've got to make decisions. And so I wanted to send a message to those in the agency. There's some very important things that the EPA does for this country. There are air quality issues and water quality issues that cross state line. We have over 1,300 Superfund sites across the country. Those are sites that have been put on a national priority list, like the one in Portland, Oregon, that literally have been, the communities there have had water issues with respect to the Hanover nuclear facility for 3 or more decades. It hasn't been cleaned up. The EPA hasn't cleaned it up. And so there's some very important work to protect and provide leadership in the environmental space. But what's happened over the last several years is the previous administration was so focused on climate change and so focused on CO2 that some of those other priorities were left behind. How to clean up those communities, we as Republicans don't have anything to be apologetic about with respect to the environment. Nothing. We have always believed that you can grow jobs, grow an economy, while also doing what? Being a good steward of the environment. That's what we're tasked to do, and we can do both.
So, one of the most interesting facts that maybe many of you know is that when he was Attorney General in Oklahoma, you sued the EPA 14 times.
Deservedly.
I believe it. But have you had a lot of questions about that from the people that you're working with now?
I have, and it came up in the Senate confirmation hearing a few times. But as it came up, ask yourself this. Why would the state of Oklahoma, the state of Texas, the state of West Virginia, or any other state in the country sue the EPA? Well, it's one, because the EPA was acting inconsistent with the statute. They said, you know what, the states have authority, but we're going to disregard that. We're going to displace that. We're going to duplicate that and force ourselves upon the states. Do you know, I'm sure you do because this is something you studied this morning, but let me tell you a stat. President Bush 1, President Clinton, and President Bush 2, 3 administrations, issued something called a Federal Implementation Plan, a FIP, a federal plan, forced upon the states 5 times in 3 administrations. This last administration, President Obama, did it 56 times in 8 years. What does that say to you? It says this, that the previous administration saw the states as a mere vessel of federal will, did not respect the 9th and 10th Amendment, did not respect Congress, did not respect the statute, did not respect the rule of law. So when you do that, what happens? You get sued. And we not only sued, we won. We stopped the Clean Power Plan. We stopped WOTUS. And guess what that means? Guess what that means now? This president, who is leading with great decisiveness, who is expressing great action, is saying, we're going to fix that. And I'm so thankful that I've got that kind of leader in the White House so we can go to the EPA to get all those things fixed now. And we should celebrate that.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Really so exciting. When all is said and done, and this journey has come to an end for you in terms of this job, what do you want it to look like? What do you want that legacy to be? I mean, everything is, there are a lot of factors that will play into that, and I understand that some of that may be fluid. But right now, when you visualize what your accomplishment will look like, what do you want them to have said about you?
I really want, this previous panel that you just heard, as far as the younger generation, the millennials, they've bought an argument and a narrative that says that we cannot be pro-energy and pro-environment. And we can. We can as a nation. We always have been. And I think that when we have a mutually exclusive kind of approach, that if you're pro-environment, you're anti-energy, and if you're pro-energy, you're anti-environment, what that means is that we've put on jerseys. You know, that we've been used to serve political ends. We as a nation are better than that. We do it better than anybody in the world as far as growing an economy and being a good steward of the environment. So I hope, whenever the day comes that I leave the EPA, I hope that the people in this country recognize that we've accomplished that we're better than China, that we're better than India, that we're better than developing nations across the globe, because we do both. We grow jobs, we see jobs in West Virginia and Ohio and Pennsylvania, and we also take care of our water, and we also take care of our air, and we take care of the future for our children. That's what I believe needs to happen.
You know, you make such a great point. You make such a great point that a lot of this is, honestly, this is messaging. Like, your greatest battle is really of a marketing nature in some ways, because getting popular opinion to go along to match up with the policy and the regulation that you want to change, that's messaging. So how can the people here at CPAC help you take that message to their peers, their work environment, their schools, as they go back out in the real world after the safe space of CPAC? I don't know.
Well, I think that another key term and a key word for me is trust. You know, there's distrust right now that exists between the states and Washington, D.C. as it relates to the EPA and the environment. We need to do what we can to restore trust. And so we're actually going to dedicate resources, Gina, to go out across the country. I'm going to be spending time in West Virginia and Ohio and states with governors and their respective executive departments there. And I'm going to send a message. Let's join arm in arm to do what's important for the environment. Let's restore trust, and let's recognize and understand that you in those states believe in clean air and clean water. And I really believe at the end of 8 years, we're going to have better air quality. We're going to have better water quality, because it will be vested in what? A partnership. A partnership that exists constitutionally and exists legally, and I hope in messaging as well.
And all that's very measurable.
Yes, very measurable.
And that's the exciting part.
It is.
So we have a lot to look forward to with you.
The future ain't what it used to be.
That's right.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.